CIA Director Mike Pompeo will go before a divided Senate later this week as he seeks confirmation as the nation's next Secretary of State. The Senate Foreign Relations Committee voted 11-10 in favor of Pompeo Monday evening. Pompeo's confirmation process comes after it was revealed earlier this month that he met with North Korean leader Kim Jong Un in Pyongyang. The regime announced last week that it is suspending tests of nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles. President Trump first called the news progress ahead of a planned meeting with Kim Jong Un. He was less optimistic about a meeting on Sunday, tweeting about U.S. talks with North Korea. Quote, "Maybe things will work out, maybe they won't." Cate Martel is a national political reporter for The Hill. She joins me now from Washington. So, Kate, Director Pompeo got a minor vote of confidence Monday from the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, but received no Democratic support. Senator Bob Corker blamed partisanship Sunday. Here's some of what he told CNN.
Under ordinary times, he would be confirmed overwhelmingly. We're in an era where somebody like this, who's qualified, unfortunately, is likely to be voted out without recommendation or with a negative recommendation.
What are the arguments on both sides of the aisle regarding Pompeo, and what about Senator Corker's argument there?
Well, Elaine, I think what's interesting in what Senator Corker was saying is that these are unusual times. And I think the general thinking is that the president deserves to have his cabinet, especially Secretary of State is one of the right-hand men that President Trump would have. So it is highly unusual and a pretty bold strategy for Democrats in committee to block Mike Pompeo to be Secretary of State. Now, Democrats' argument right now is saying that they want to block that anybody that President Trump is putting forward because they think that Mike Pompeo is too much of a supporter of President Trump, ironically, that they are looking for somebody who will keep the president in check, and they think that Mike Pompeo, as CIA director earlier this month by meeting with Kim Jong Un, the North Korean leader, is kind of showing that he is willing to support whatever the president does. And they're looking for somebody who will kind of check him a little bit and keep him to how they think is a little bit more centrist. Now, Republicans have been arguing that, again, the president deserves to have his people. And the reason I say it's highly unusual is we haven't seen this since the mid-1920s. Had Mike Pompeo not been confirmed tonight, that would have been the first time since the 1920s that one of the cabinet members would have gone to a floor vote without having the committee support. And either way, he would have gone to a floor vote, but this definitely does take away a few of the procedural hurdles. And now there's a lot fewer issues for the Senate to deal with to get Mike Pompeo through.
Well, the ranking member of the committee, Senator Bob Menendez, brought up Pompeo's relationship with the president Monday. What exactly are Democrats worried about there?
So what Democrats are really worried about right now is that if they have Mike Pompeo in there, especially when we're looking at North Korea right now, that this is a highly contentious meeting. This is something that a lot of other countries right now in the West have been kind of pushing off, and they're afraid that Mike Pompeo will go along with whatever the president is saying, and they're looking for somebody who will hopefully try to keep the president in line. And we have to remember, too, when it comes to North Korea, there are 3 American prisoners there right now, and they were kind of, I think, a lot of people in Congress were hoping that that would be, releasing those 3 prisoners would be the major stipulation for having this meeting between President Trump and Kim Jong Un, and that did not come about. It sounds like it might have come up, but the White House is saying that was a really productive conversation, but so far we haven't seen the release of them. And we're looking at the denuclearization of North Korea. Yes, as you were saying in the intro, that that North Korea did stop testing nuclear weapons in the meantime, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's because of the influence of the president, and they're hoping that Mike Pompeo would be a strong force.
Yeah, let me ask you some more about that. The president tweeted Sunday that North Korea has agreed to, quote, denuclearization, but Kim Jong Un has not yet said that he will get rid of his nation's nuclear arsenal. So could the two sides conceivably come into some meeting with very different ideas of what the other nation wants?
Yes, absolutely, Elaine. And I think that is what the reason that this meeting is so highly contentious right now. And President Trump, we even saw him tweet that if he doesn't like how this meeting is going, he's willing to walk up from this meeting and step away because that there are so different competing arguments of what will go on in this meeting. Now, President Trump in the tweet Sunday we're saying that Kim Jong Un agreed to stop testing nuclear weapons, when that may not actually necessarily be the case. We don't know that he's stopping stopping them temporarily, or is this permanent? And also, what Kim Jong Un, what North Korea is responding is saying is the reason we stopped testing is because we know how capable our nuclear capacity is, and we don't need to continue testing. They know that why continue to anger a lot of these Western countries if they know the power of their weapons. Now, I think the other thing to keep in mind is that North Korea is impoverished right now. The average North Korean is living off $1,700 a year. And Kim Jong Un knows that and is apparently right now trying to boost the economy of the country, and is knowing all these sanctions that will come about from this nuclear testing will not help him in a positive way. So it might have a little part to do with that.
So, I mean, in a typical conventional presidency, you would have diplomats on both sides essentially ensuring that there was going to be no doubt about what each principal was walking into that meeting with. Do we have an idea how this process is working in this presidency?
Elaine, in short, we do not have a general idea of what would go on in this meeting. What's highly unusual, too, is usually you wouldn't be seeing the president, the leader of the country, tweeting things out that haven't necessarily been vetted in the way that these press releases and these diplomats and all of the things going on behind the scenes that would lead to a meeting such as this. Now, what we are hearing is that there are some issues that will come up. The prisoners, there's the denuclearization. And even as far as to go into where they are meeting is such an issue that will set the tone. There's been talk of some Asian countries, some places in Europe, Sweden, Switzerland have come up as being fairly neutral territories. It is unclear whether North Korean leader Kim Jong Un could get there based on the Soviet capacity of the planes that he's using right now. But that would even set the tone. And as we're looking at where the diplomats would come in, yes, as you were saying, there would usually be an idea ahead of time of this is exactly what we are going into this meeting and coming out with, when we don't necessarily have those assurances because of the two countries involved and the president's direct impact as far as when he's tweeting things that he isn't always necessarily going through his diplomats.
Yeah, certainly a different way of doing things. Finally, Kate, French President Emmanuel Macron arrived in Washington on Monday for a state visit, which is the first of the Trump presidency. Now, Macron has often tried to change President Trump's mind on issues from the Paris Climate Accords to the Iran nuclear deal. So is this state visit more of a show of unity, or is actual U.S. foreign policy at stake here?
That's an interesting point that, yes, it is about unity, but this is also a big moment for President Trump. In picking his first state visit, he wants to find find a country that he thinks that they could find common ground with. And the French President Emmanuel Macron and President Trump are disagreeing on a whole host of issues. And I think what President Trump is probably hoping that'll come out of this is that he can have productive conversations on Syria, on trade, the Iran nuclear deal, as you were saying, and is hoping that the result of these meetings is that they may be able to find some common ground. We know that President Macron is hoping that the president will exempt European countries from the tariffs on metals. And it's unclear what will come out of this. Now, White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders was asked today, what are they expecting to come out of this meeting and what does this mean for American foreign policy? And she would not go there. She kept saying that, hey, he hasn't even landed yet and we don't want to preemptively predict what is going to come out of these meetings. But based on, we have seen them land there right now in Virginia at George Washington's house having dinner, and they just planted a tree and it seems to be going well so far. But I think what the culmination, the interesting part at the end, is to see when the address to Congress happens and to see what common ground President Trump did find with the French president.
All right, as always, another busy week in Washington ahead. Cate Martel, thank you so much.
Thank you.